Is this on? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Lovely to see you here today on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Clara Kim. I'm the Chief Curator and Director of Curatorial Affairs here at MOCA, and happy to be introducing today's program with Wael Shawky and MOCA Associate Curator Alex Sloane. We are thrilled to be hosting the US premiere of this really remarkable work that debuted at the Venice Biennial. Many of you may have seen it there. It was the talk of the town, and it quickly garnered a lot of critical attention. It's a remarkable work, a 45-minute film, which you will see after the talk today. So please stay and watch the length of the film. It's a remarkable piece. And just to say, I want to thank Wael and also Listen Gallery. Right after the opening of Venice, I quickly got in touch with the gallery to talk exactly about this, about the possibility of premiering it here in Los Angeles. And we're so thrilled to be the first American institution to be hosting it here. It's a limited run of 4 weeks, so please tell all your friends. We want to make sure people in Los Angeles see this remarkable work. Just to say that I want to thank Klaus Rogenhagen, who is here with us from Listen Gallery. And I also want to say the importance of hosting this event and this piece here in Warehouse. Many of you know that this is a space in which we show works of art that kind of defy categorization, transgress disciplinary boundaries. We've staged experimental operas here, musical concerts, sound installations, and Drama 1882, I think, is the perfect kind of work to host in this space. And to that end, I want to thank Wonmi and Ki Wong Kwan and family, the founders of Wonmi's Warehouse programs, and the MOCA Fund for Performance with generous funding provided by Betsy Greenberg and the Lenora and Bernard Greenberg Fund. I also want to thank the MOCA Global Council. This is a new support group that I initiated last year, and it's the support of this council allows for us to host these remarkable projects with some of the leading artists of our time. So really thankful for their support to enable this presentation here. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Alex and Wael, and just to say after the talk, the film will be on, so please stay. It will quickly transition over and we'll invite you in to experience the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. You're good, Wael. Thank you all for coming here this afternoon. I'm Alex Sloane, an Associate Curator here at MOCA. It has been quite the journey to get here, and it's really exciting to have everyone here and to be able to share Wael's work, Drama 1882, with everyone. This is a pretty informal conversation. We'll chat for a little bit, and then we'll open it up to questions. So please, shout if you do have any questions, and then as Clara mentioned, we will put the full installation with sound back on immediately afterwards. So Wael, just to kind of start us off, I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the origins of the project. It was commissioned for the Venice Biennale last year, and you've mentioned that it was quite a quick turnaround from the invitation to the opening, like 8 months or something, quite intense. And you managed to create an entire opera in that time, write a libretto, score, cast everything, to shoot it all. So I was just interested to know why specifically this point of Egyptian history did you want to focus on? And why did you think that an opera staged for film was the best way of doing it?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Clara. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending this. Okay, so I had this, I received the invitation to take part of, to present Egypt in Venice Biennale almost 8 months before the exhibition. It was a bit, I was very hesitant to accept in the beginning because I really decided since the revolution in Egypt in 2010 that I would not really work with the government at all. So I didn't really do anything in Egypt even. So after a lot of discussions with many people I trust and many thoughts, within 1 week, I went back to the government and I asked them to give me the full control over the pavilion. And there is no censorship, and they don't really enter the pavilion at all until we finish completely. And weirdly, they accepted. And they gave me the key, basically, and they did not really attend anything. They didn't even attend the opening, which is weird. I didn't ask them to that degree, but in the end, they did not show up at all. But anyway, I just have to say that they were really positive, and they supported. And they supported this because they wanted really to make something correct, which is I really respect. And the reason I accepted this time, because of course of all the changes that are happening politically in the whole region, and I thought we have to have a voice, and we need to have sort of platform to talk, and that was the only chance, and so I found it very important. Why 1882, why this particular date? It's very important in Egypt because this is the beginning of the British occupation that lasted almost 73 years. And I found that if I really have enough time, and if I'm capable of doing this, I have 3 stages, 3 different dates in the Egyptian modern history that I would like to work on. So this is 1882, and the next one, if I'm capable to do it, it will be 1919, and then after that, it will be 1952. So these are very important dates that happened, that shaped this modern history in Egypt and also in the region, basically.
So do you see this as part 1 of a trilogy?
I hope. That's the dream. So I thought also it's very important because of the topic of the biennial, which was about foreigners everywhere, and to try to focus on this idea of foreigners. So this time in Egypt, of course, this is really the main events are happening in Alexandria. Alexandria, of course, as you can imagine, it was one of the most cosmopolitan city during this time. Most of these foreigners, that we call them foreigners in Egypt, this time were from British, French, Greeks, and also the subjects of the British Empire. So what is happening here, that even our idea about when we say foreigners today in Europe, we are talking mainly about immigrants. At this time, we were talking about foreigners, that they became occupiers after that, which is completely different. So there is an incident happened before the British occupation, just 1 month before the British occupation, we don't have that much evidence about it, but we know that it happened, which is simply that a Malti guy visited the British embassy in Alexandria, in a district called the European District. And after that, he took a donkey with someone called Makari. Makari is the person who is, I don't know, it's this guy. Yeah, so it's like Uber today, where is the person who is pulling the donkey, and the person just sit on the back of the donkey to go from one place to another. And he went from the British embassy to many different places and stopped in many different bars, and he was very drunk until he reached a place called Saba Banat in Alexandria, where a fight happened between this person, the Malti guy, and the Makari, and then he killed the Egyptian guy. The Malti guy killed the Egyptian guy. Then a huge fight happened in the streets of Alexandria that led to kill almost 300 persons. Most of them were Egyptians. And the multi guy ran away, like he disappeared. And of course the police, the British, also managed to hide him. So we don't know him. He's now, even in the film, he's anonymous. We don't know his name. After that, because of the killing of these some people, the British said that, okay, we have to protect our subjects in Egypt. What Malta was one of them, of course. So they started to bombard Alexandria. They killed, I think, 2,500 almost, and they destroyed big part of Alexandria. And then after that, they decided to conquer Egypt. So I'm just trying to deal with this history. Like many times, I'm trying to, I like a lot this part, because part of it is vague, which is I always like to work with in history. I like a lot this idea that in history that, okay, we say it's a historical event, but we're not 100% sure, and this is this gap of ignorance that we have in this part. I think this is the part of creativity that I always feel I like to play with. So I try to work with it as if I am confident about every detail, but still there's a doubt in it.
And yeah, I think, this is the doubt that you're exploiting, and as an artist rather than as a historian, you have the ability to really exploit that creative ambiguity. And yes, this idea of restaging history. And I really liked what you said the other day, that this is a restaging of a historical event that itself was likely staged, and it's being presented on a stage. It's sort of these layers of it about how it can be both the grey area becomes more into focus almost, and also the choice to use opera, like opera, possibly one of the most dramatic art forms, and the idea of drama, like that really pointing to the dramatic moments, and then to make it an artwork. It's this is not a historical reenactment. It is an artistic restaging. But how, for you, does this allow for kind of greater perspective or greater knowledge?
Yeah, the idea, of course, because of this idea, I was trying to focus also on this idea about how this event might be staged already. Because for many scholars, they believe that this whole fight was already staged to give the
Brits needed an
British
excuse.
the reason to come to Egypt. So that's why actually I decided to put it like a play and then film it. But why drama? I think also it has another reason. I worked a lot with marionettes, with masks, with kids, with inverted image. This is most of my work is like that, and this is also because of I try in all my films to kill drama. I don't like acting. I don't like this scene that is depending on the actor's skill. So that's why I was always, like from the beginning, they were like made a series called Telematches with kids. And then after that started to work with the marionettes. And then I made another film after that, which started to work with masks. And then when I was thinking about this moment in the Egyptian history, I decided just to really to shift everything and to make it the opposite and work with professionals and to work with the adults, performers. And that's why I even called it drama, the complete opposite.
But you've said the choreography which you created, it is sort of based on your experience working with marionettes. This is why often the crowd scenes you see when there's the fight between the foreigners and the locals, and the sway, and that is also in Urubai's army. You see the sway almost as if they are puppets. Was that part of the idea behind that choreography?
Yeah, I think I learned a lot from this series of the marionettes. So when they become adults, they were moving somehow like they are like controlled, but they are also hypnotized. And this idea about the movement, it came from the reading of most of these conversations that are happening between leaders, that you feel always with these letters that they are like sending to each other, that sometimes someone is more dominant than the other one. So I felt always that this movement is going to give this feeling of this fight of the dominancy that it's happening in this political discourse.
And is that sort of similar? One of the things that I really took away was the use of Arabic and of local Egyptian performers throughout, including for the characters who are British, who are Russian, French, Italian. The scene where the diplomats are sitting around the table, which is very emblematic of how diplomats still sit around tables and decide the future of geopolitics. But the choice to make everyone Egyptian and speaking classical Arabic, including Queen Victoria, which that sort of scene where, again, using creative license because she wasn't in Alexandria, but the idea of her kind of having a idealized version of what the events that took place and speaking Arabic rather than English. For me, that was a kind of an inverting of English as the language of imperialism, the language of empire. Victoria as, she was empress. And how, for you, is that kind of idea of, flipping the scales, shall we say, on occupier versus occupied?
I think I really like a lot this idea of like shifting mediums, trying to play even, for example, I can just give another example. In 2012, I made the second part of Cabaret Crusades, where I made it actually in France, in Oban, where they have a traditional way of making ceramic. It's these santons, I don't know if you, anyway, these are just very small figurines. They use them inside the churches that tells the story of Mary and Jesus. And this is very, very historical, traditional craft in this area particularly, that is really also connected to Clermont, where the first launching of the first Crusades happened by Pope Urban II in 1094. I think it was very important for me to try to work with this particular craft, to try to translate. So with this craft, they are making figurines, but we decided to work with this team for the first time to make them make marionettes out of ceramic, which of course was extremely difficult and very big challenge for them. But if you're able to make these marionettes that are telling the history of the Crusades from the Arab point of view, I think these types of shifts are extremely interesting, and I like this a lot. This is also I did after that when I was working in Murano to make the same marionettes but in Murano glass. Again, to translate the involvement of the Venetians in the Crusades history, but when they speak in Arabic. So it's because this craft for me is extremely important. So how to make this connection to make it in the end speaks in classical Arabic. It's my language that of course it's my first language. I'm born in Egypt, but I spent part of my childhood in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca. I learned Quran and I speak classical Arabic very well, and this is really part of my main understanding, and I deal with this classical Arabic. It's like musical. I find it always musical. So I like always to use it in my work. In general, including this, of course, I found that it's extremely important to keep the same track of the classical Arabic.
You talk about the Arabic sounding musical. Is that one of the reasons why you go to music a lot in your work, and the idea of composition? You sort of said that you're not trained in musically, but that it has sort of permeated your work so much. What was it like to write a score for a whole opera for this one?
I always write my own music. That when I say I write my own music, I'm not a musician, but I make music. I don't know how to explain this. I make music for all my films. And then for this film, for example, I made the music while I was making the script. Then I had to sing the whole 45 minutes completely with my voice. and people had to suffer with this because we had to make all the rehearsals for like almost 4 months with my voice. Basically, we had more than 130 performers. They all had to memorize everything, the whole 45 minutes. And after this, after everyone knows everything, we go to studio and we bring professional singers to have different roles. I play only here the role, with my voice, I sing only the role of the Khidewi. Yeah, but it's, I think everything is connected. I mean, I just had a really nice talk with Reem Fadda in Abu Dhabi, and I really believe in this. I honestly believe that I really don't want to be good in anything. It's good to, I think about it in just making scenography is as equal as making drawing or music or filming. I mean, it's just like, the thing is, for me, it's...
Well, and this piece, I mean, it's a living painting, it's performance, it's an installation, it's a film, it somewhat defies categorization. And you've sort of spoken about, you talk about the scenography as being so important. It is, each scene, there are 8 scenes, each scene is a painting, and then the performers they inhabit that painting and move through that painting, become that painting. And they're very sort of expressionistic, the sets there. And was there anything that you were drawing particular sources from, or is it this a creation of your imagination?
Of course, we had a lot of research.
Yeah,
for many things, but in the end, most of these scenes are like similar to my drawings. I think it's, I tried, I mean, I had my bachelor degree at the Faculty of Fine Arts in Alexandria as a painter, and then I went to MFA in University of Pennsylvania, but I'm originally a painter, so I think it comes a lot in my work that it's, I think, I just like in every scene, we have 8 scenes, and I thought it's really nice if I can make them like moving painting on each one. It's, at the same time, it's a musical moving painting, let's say. So every element, as I'm saying, that was very, very important. I don't like at all the idea that there is something primary and something secondary. Everything as equal. Like the scenography is also moving the same movement of the performers. It's exactly the same. It's like, it's the music is, there's nothing is background. The music is not background. This music is not an effect. It's part of the work. It's the scenography is also the same. So I believe that was the main point about it.
But on that idea though, have you ever thought about presenting it as a live performance, or for you, it exists as the installation as we see it now, or as it was in Egypt? I'm just sort of interested in whether, even in the future, you have any interest in presenting something live.
Well, we had many offers. Yeah, many offers to have it as a, but it's not possible, honestly. I mean, from like technical point of view, I think it's extremely difficult. Each one of these scenographies is like really complicated to build, and it's so complicated to do it.
And from experience, doing this live would have been very difficult. The scene changes would have been quite something. But no, I'm just sort of thinking, whether in the future, or whether you as an artist have any interest in, so much of your work has performative elements, but whether you had ever thought about or had interest in performing, making a live performance, something that was meant to be seen live as opposed to be seen on the camera.
Yeah, well, I made a performance called The Song of Roland, the Arabic version. That was also a musical performance for 1 hour. But it's much easier than this one. In general, I really like to work with many different mediums. I find that each medium has its own limitation, and really you cannot just translate each topic with the same medium. I like the viewer to have different angles through different mediums. Yeah, and actually even I like sometimes to work with this word culture as a medium also. So it's, I hate the idea that because I'm Egyptian, I'm only allowed to talk about Egyptian history or Arab history or whatever. I always try to break this by, for example, sometimes I work with languages that I don't know at all, like when I produced in the, when was that? It was in 2012, 2013, a performance called Dictums in the opening of Sharjah Bin Ali, and that was by working with Pakistani Qawwali singers, and this was extremely important piece for me because these Qawwali, of course, the Qawwali is this Sufi religious way of singing in Pakistan and India. But the idea here that I was just trying to make the workers inside Sharjah Foundation to take part of this. It was a big workshop to work on the previous press conference of the Bin Ali and to try to transform the press conference into a poem. And from this poem, in Urdu, we translated everything into Urdu, and then we made a big song. What is really interesting for me about this, that I don't have that much control over the language. I always try to have that control over the language, but this time, it's a language that I don't know at all. And even the music, I don't have control over it. I did this again in my current exhibition in Korea when I decided to work with pansori in Korean. Also, this is a very traditional way of singing. And I was fascinated by this music, and I try to do this sometimes to isolate myself a little bit from this type of control.
Yes, live performance is always somewhat risky. it has its moments. For you, like now bringing this work, bringing Drama 1882 to the US, it's been, obviously it was at Venice, and you've also mentioned how it's been shown, they've had screenings in Egypt. I know what I feel about it being for a US audience, but for you, how does it shift? It's sort of the perception of this work in America versus Europe or in Egypt. The response, maybe, especially if people are not intimately familiar with this moment in history.
I don't know, from what I saw in Venice, because in Venice we've seen many people from everywhere, from America, from everywhere, and I found that I was really fascinated by the connections that I had with people. I mean, even that they see this in their own history. I found this in Korea, I found this in Japan, I found this in Edinburgh, and I was really fascinated that this is really connecting with many people, many history actually. It's not really about only the Egyptian history, it's just about, I think human nature basically.
And I think that the idea of foreigners versus locals, occupier versus occupied, is fairly universal and echoes very much today. But you say you want to sort of take it on. I hadn't heard this because so you want to talk more about Egypt under the Veiled Protectorate, and then 1952, and then up to Suez Crisis, or how I would end of empire, collapse of the British rule.
I mean, okay, this is if we're talking about the three stages.
I'm sort of interested how you would see a trilogy playing out.
Well, I mean, this is not really happening yet, but I think the more interesting, because in the end we see here the falling of the revolution. We're not talking about a real revolution from Egypt. This is really completely failing. And this is happening again with someone called Saad Zaghloul in 1919. And then, what I'm saying, 1952 is another complete area when the army with Abdel Nasser started this whole thing in Egypt that we see until this moment. It's just something completely different. Let's say, Yeah, I mean, in general, I really like a lot not to be a reactionist. When there is something, I mean, when we're doing this, of course, all these events in Gaza were happening, and of course, everybody was very sad, and this is really happening, and I'm coming from this, absolutely. And the thing is, I really, and that happened before also when we were showing Cabaret Crusades. During Cabaret Crusades, with all this revolutions that happened in the Arab world, but I didn't do it for that. I was already making the work, and it's connected with the modern history. So I really didn't want this to be a reflection to what is happening, particularly today. But this is
it's inevitable.
It's the history. It's always, it's not for me repeating itself, but it's the result. We see what happened 1,000 years ago from the Crusades that led into what we are today, actually. We see the result in the Arab world. So this is also the result. We see the result today.
And as you say, the result being British occupation, and the end of that British occupation also was the rise of US and Russian or Soviet Union influence in the region, and the end of, or one could argue, the end of European superpowers. Sure. And I think that, but like coming back again to what you were saying right at the beginning, that the Egyptian government, they ask you to do it, and then they said, okay, here's the keys. Have you had any response since, or like what was their feeling?
No, I think they were very proud of the success, and they were very happy, honestly.
But it got such a phenomenal reception.
No, they were very happy. I mean, the most important thing that we tried to avoid, that was really the main reason, is to try to avoid using anything for propaganda. This is what we are really against. So, alhamdulillah, we didn't, we succeeded in this at least, yes.
Do you, this is so sumptuous and it's so beautiful and it kind of envelops you. This idea of sort of history as a human creation, and also that it can be reimagined. Is this, outside of your artwork, do you think that this is something that people could think about more, that speculation and questioning in everyday life is something we could do more of?
I don't know really. This is
okay.
Yeah.
You just stick to your questioning.
Yeah, this is difficult.
You certainly question a lot of things.
Yeah, of course, but I don't know. I think for me really, I make many of this work not because I am intellectual in history and I know, and it's not like that really. I think for every project I read a lot to be able to make it. So for me, it's always a learning experience. Always, even to read this history was also very, very learning experience for me. And how to translate. For me, art really is a translation. Is how to translate certain format into another readable format, and that's always the thing.
I think this makes it more accessible, and it's like, as you say, with the colors and things, and it kind of also, this is all about destruction and creation, like that what can come out of the ending of one thing and into the next phase of history. And I think what you provide is the sort of the possibility and the beauty, and taking the essence of the history, but also giving it the human quality that sometimes gets lost in facts and like dates. That's not what the world is. On that note, does anyone would like to open it up for some questions? If anyone has any questions for Wael? Yes? Oh. How you shot the film? Yes.
As I said, okay, it took us, we had a very, very short time to make this. I worked with many people in Egypt. I was like fascinated by the quality. And many of them are really young generation that they don't have that much possibilities. Like we don't have that much channels also in Egypt to show. There are not that much. I just want you to, I mean, also this is very important to know that in Egypt, of course we have museums, but we don't have anything has to do with contemporary art. There's no one museum has to do with contemporary art, so everything is very, very limited. We have really good artists, but maybe they are like somewhere in the world. I mean, this is like, it's a bit difficult. Not that much venues, this is real. So when they found this, actually they put their heart in it and they did something incredible. I was really surprised. They were very efficient. They were working 24 hours to meet the deadline, and they did it fantastic. Yes, as I said, I worked with everything in parallel, writing the script, at the same time making the music, at the same time producing the scenography, which was the most complicated part, of course, because we needed to produce all of this on a theater and store it and bring it back during the shooting and all of this. And also for the sake of reducing the cost, we had to finish all the shooting within 2 weeks. So we finished all the preparation, all the rehearsals completely, and we had to be very, very strict in the timing, how to finish everything within 2 weeks. And I'm honestly so proud of the team. They were incredible. I mean, someone like was working with me in the choreography, for example. Her name is Merit Mitchell. And I mean, we had all the rehearsals, and that was actually it's in this scene. Wow. It's in this scene, really. It's the 8th scene. We started the shooting this day, and after like 2 hours, I'm looking at the monitor and I'm just not happy at all, and I stopped everything and I told her, we have to change everything. We have to change the whole scenography immediately. And we changed everything in 2 hours. She managed to, because they really they became, all the performers became like really into this. So it was like possible to make all these changes with all this amount of people within 2 hours, really. And to make it, in my opinion, it was like really the most tight practice I've seen from them. It's really, really, really good.
I'm curious what made you decide to do this as an opera, since it's an artwork that deals with colonialism, and this kind of opera seems so Eurocentric.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's an opera. I think it's just musical. Something like really. This is also something I always like to make in my artwork somehow. It's, how can I say this? Like when, and this is really honestly, like when I feel that art has a look, I'm not happy, really. So if art has a certain look that I know that it will look like this to become contemporary art, I'm trying to avoid completely. And this is risky, and I know that it's risky. When we were making this, it was very risky, even for my team, that the people that were like close to me, because they were afraid, like me, that this may turn into Hollywood, turn into something kitschy. It has this risk. And because of this risk, I like it. Because it can be great, and it can be terrible. True. And I know that. And I know that it has this. It's much easier, instead of making this with singing and music and all of this, to make this type of abstract noise, electronic, that I know how to do this in a way. But I think it can be easily successful this way. But I don't think this is art, really. I think it's art is this, that we make something that we don't know. We have to keep it like this. Once we know it, it's not art anymore. So this is part of it, for sure.
When you got the invitation and then with the Biennale, the theme being Stranieri ovunque, foreigners everywhere. How did that come into play? Was that the starting off point? Because as I listened to you, you had a very tight lens, but then it's almost like you start out broad, and then everything gets focused down to the final result here. So when you receive the invitation and they tell you what the theme is, was that the starting point for you, or when did that come into play?
Yeah, the starting point, because also even with this, I didn't know what I want to do really. I really was just like the idea that it came with this old thoughts of the government and the relationship between me and the regime and the situation in Egypt. Everything happened very, very quickly. And I think that built everything. Even when we started to write the script, I really didn't even know. I mean, I knew that very quickly, like after 1 week, 2 weeks, that I would like to talk about this particular moment in the Egyptian history. But I didn't know exactly that this would be the format. It appeared like everything. I mean, and I think this is what I was just saying. I think best format I ever worked with is drawing for me, because it's the most spontaneous. I don't think it's always the best. It's always, once you start to make it make sense to me. I mean, I'm talking just about my language. It doesn't work, and I find that it's really more effective when I try to imitate nature. That it doesn't have a reason really why the tree is tall or short, or it's like that it has this intent to accept it as is. So if I believe it that much, it will reach something. This is the way of like really constructing it. Even if it's that big, it doesn't matter. I think it's like it's building itself with time. Within 1 month, I started to know the language, how it should be.
We've talked about the visuals, the cinematics, the staging. It's all fascinating, and watching it behind you, captivating. But to animate and activate this, you had to cast it. What was your process for choosing the actors, or if you call them actors?
Yeah, they are performers. They are dancers coming from many places. It was not very easy, but because it's just like 2 parts. You need to avoid to have someone that is really acting, yeah. Because we had this, of course, and we didn't really work with them. It was very difficult because you won't be able to ask them not to act, yeah. It's difficult. So, and the other thing is, I was also surprised that some movements, for me, I thought it's extremely easy, like walking backwards, for example. I found that it's extremely difficult for some people to do it, or to sync their steps with each other. I mean, things that we think it's extremely basic, but when you work with people that are not professionals, it's really not easy to do this. So, yes, I've seen I don't know, like more than 200 persons. I mean, most of them were not really professionals, but they like art, they like theater, they like singing, they're like that. So we work with many different, you know that the most interesting, I mean, seriously, most talented in this whole thing is Urabi, the leader of this. His voice is incredible, his movement is incredible. I mean, believe it or not, this guy is working in a bank, in my bank. I don't know how. I was just surprised. Yeah. His name is Basim Muhammad, just like, it's incredible.
Okay, one more question.
Well, thank you for being here and for this discussion. I'm almost jealous of those who haven't seen it yet, because we were lucky enough to see it and went back twice in Venice to the Egyptian pavilion. It's just mesmerizing. And my question is about the other pieces you had in the room. The village, the mud village that's walking, and the creature, the wooden creature. Everything seems to have some kind of legs on it, but maybe tell us a little bit more about those choices, if you would, please.
I just try to play with the whole pavilion as so the audience is like feeling that this environment, that it's happening in the film, that it's also happening in the space that they are entering, with all the curtains and the pieces. So the pieces they're more into the idea of the royal family, that Tawfiq, that were like Khidevi, Tawfiq, that were like ruling the country, and all this elite taste, but it's still somehow it's corrupt, destroyed somehow, and we see elements like fava beans that was extremely important for the economy in Egypt, and the sugar cane also, because Egypt was extremely famous with cotton, of course, as you know, and Khidevi Tawfiq decided to switch big, huge part of the cotton in Egypt to sugar cane, because Europe told him to do this because they needed sugar then. So I had these elements of sugar cane made out of aluminum and nickel and so on. So there are many elements around the room. In the middle with this mud house, it's more like the majority of the population in Egypt that were already farmers, basically. And this is really part also of things that I'm also interested in it, which is like playing with the different system, the agricultural society and the urban society and so on. But so I feel that this is the story about it.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Wael. And we will restart with sound very shortly.